It's funny, no matter how high you climb or, whatever milestone you achieve, periodically, I think we do at some point sit on the couch and come back to this thinking like, fuck, it's over. It's over for me. And what I want to talk about in this video is that you're really not. It's not over. It genuinely, for most situations and most circumstances, it is never over. Quite the contrary, there is a fuck ton of hope and possibility and dream potentiation in your life. And you should be pumped. You should be pumped all the time that this incredible journey is in front of you. All that's missing is that you haven't recognized what needs to be done, what is known as the process. You haven't recognized what that thing is, and you haven't just gone full Creed montage sequence, immersed into it, and genuinely began to love it, and just adore it, and adore this sort of arc that you're on. It's an incredible thing, and we're all on this arc all the time, every season of our life. So in this video, I want to talk about 4 ideas that I've been thinking about this week, as I had put my own short film on pause, and now, as the fall weather is approaching, kind of ramping back up again and getting back into the swing of things. And so the first idea I want to share in this video is that you're not stuck. You just need to clarify your vision and hone in on the process. Every goal has a handful of actions, just a couple of things that need to be done on a regular basis in regard to it. Genuinely across the board, whether it's getting laid, getting rich, or fulfilling some artistic vision. Things are so simple, and I'm so glad that as an adult I got into endurance training and endurance events because I learned that really definitively. The reason you can chase some goals like running a marathon, right now I'm training for a sub 3:10 marathon, which if you want to keep up with that progression, you can find my second channel's link in the description box, Sinbad Trains, where I log that journey. It's so fucking easy. At the very least, it's so simple to progress on a marathon build, and anyone, even someone who's completely out of shape, they can progress very rapidly, and by that I mean over the course of months, on any training build, if they just do a handful of things over and over again. 2 years ago, I ran a marathon in 5 hours and 3 minutes. Now, being on track to run that nearly 2 hours faster 2 years later, it just goes to show that a simple process, when followed as well as you can, gets you a result. To exemplify this idea further, I want to share just a handful of things that I see as milestones that I want to achieve that I'm working towards. So one, the marathon. With my marathon training, I sort of stopped on progression for a little while. After Grandma's marathon in June, my progression with the marathon, it was starting to slow down a bit. But then I realized that double easy runs, which sounds a little bit extreme and unbalanced, but it basically means you wake up, you run, and then you take a pause, and then you run again. So doing doubles, I try to get it done before 10 or 11 a.m. It's super useful. It's super useful for starting to progress faster. And that's a simple process. It's a one-step process, but it's completely cured or solved this plateau I was hitting with running. It's a process. You wake up, you run, you take a little break, and then you run again. You end up running for 2 hours first thing every morning, which is goofy. But the process is totally doable and is there for the taking. Ironman training. For me, I only need to do Ironman specific training once a week, which is just going out for an open water swim or a bike ride once a week and just doing some sort of progression on it. So, my next swim, I'll try to do 1 mile with no interruptions, or I'll climb up to a 30-mile bike ride, start to finish with no interruptions. Getting a career, for me, getting a new Salesforce job or a Salesforce consultant position, which I know in a previous video I got some flack for, but really for me, the motivation behind Salesforce and whatnot is to basically have a diversified portfolio in addition to YouTube, and have a career where I can see its trajectory on the climb very, very reliably. And the thing is, if you become a Salesforce technical architect, that's a career I can have in my 40s and 50s, or at least whatever progression version of that. Even in my 40s and 50s, there will be some form of technology and technology services. I see corporate life in the long term being very reliable. So I began to pursue it again. And really, getting any kind of job or any kind of position, there's only a couple processes that you need to fulfill. It's either a couple applications a day or a combination of applying and improving your skills on a weekly basis. For YouTube, it's a 7-step process before, choosing a title and thumbnail and making a video and whatnot, but essentially it comes down to making a video a week. And then lastly, for making a movie, which I'm working on, I would say the process is engaging with the film in some capacity every single day. So later today, I'm meeting with an actor at the Guthrie Theater, and really seems like a really cool, inspiring guy. We're just talking through, see if there's a role for him in the film. So engaging with the film, having some sort of like connection with the film on a daily basis, even if we're not filming and editing all the time. So for so many things in life, we just don't understand that there's just a handful of things that if you just make your schedule around and you do those things, like you will start moving towards that result. It's not over. You know, it's not over. You can definitively work towards and do a thing. So at this point, you have to ask yourself, like, what is the vision? What is the vision that I genuinely want to work towards? And then what would a reasonable schedule look like around that system? What are those handful of actions? And if you can focus on that, then you'll realize like, damn, there's actually way more for the taking than I originally thought. The second thing I want to talk about is the example of a process. So I want to give you the example of the process that I'm working on right now, the way I'm structuring things. And I'll give you 2 different days on how I might structure my life. And so my process looks like this: wake, run, rejuvenate, run again, then lunch and a nap, then work. I work at my computer for 4 to 5 hours every day. That's usually some kind of outreach, maybe a coaching call, just desk work, computer work, getting it done work. Then eat and relax again. So after doing a lot of intellectual work, you know, your brain needs glucose. So I just like to carb up, feel a little bit better, and then relax for a bit. After that, I want to film some sort of sequence most evenings per week. What would that entail? You know, it could be getting B-roll for just a regular Captain Sinbad video or a Sinbad Trains video, or it could be working on an actual scene for River Rats, the film project that I'm working on, or something otherwise. But there's usually some sort of creative in the field, like filming, that I want to do most evenings in this next stretch of time because the weather is getting so good. And around that 6 to 8 p.m. mark is when blue hour is going to hit. The lighting is fantastic. So I can film a lot of cinematic sequences in the evenings, you know, most days coming up. And then after filming, decompress, chill, sleep. Now on a second day, if I'm not doing a double run that morning, because that is wild, and I know some people are more focused on hypertrophy, my schedule might look more like wake, edit. Then after a couple hours of editing, lunch and a nap. I do take a nap, a 20-minute nap most days, because it does like just mentally completely refresh me. Then workout / weightlifting, some sort of strength training, decompress after that, and then once again, film a sequence in the evening and sleep. And so my process, it looks really similar most days. It's either like double runs or just edit in the morning, you know, no running that day, it's a rest day, and then lifting, whatever it might be. The process is super simple. Very repetitive, filming or some sort of pre-production work most evenings. And yet, if I do this reliably for the next 3 or 4 months, 1, the sub 310 marathon will happen. 2, progress will happen when it comes to business and all that. And lastly, the fucking short film will get made, which is, it must happen, you know, like I'm so pumped about that. I'm so desperate to make that happen and make that work. We're still just trying to pull another 20 to 30 grand to pour into the movie, but I'm really determined to get it done by the end of this season. And so you can do this for yourself. You know, you can create your own schedule. And as someone who's worked a 9 to 5 or even worked service jobs in the past, like I used to work at the Gap, working for a boss, working in a certain location, it does take away time, you know, and I have the luxury of more or less setting my own schedule for myself and attuning myself to the hours that I find myself most productive. But at the same time, you can fully do this for yourself too. Like even with a job, you can find a way to basically experiment and see what hours can be attuned to what, and work towards a certain result. So figure out the goal, figure out the metric, figure out the process, and then just fall in love with doing that process day in and day out. Like I'm so excited for these double runs every morning because I'm getting faster. In fact, just a week ago, I ran a 10-mile tune-up race and I got 2nd overall in my age group. Like these signs, they're very encouraging, showing that you're progressing towards a certain thing. And it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long for like the storyline to continue. And I think that's just so encouraging. I find myself encouraged by that all the freaking time. Idea 3, for every impossible goal, what goal is the 100% achievable stepping stone? When in doubt, get yourself excited about what can be done. Sometimes I've even had people in my coaching program say this, you know, like some guy, really great client who I'd worked with, he said he watched Dune 2. This was back in March. He watched Dune 2 and then he got depressed because that movie was so good. And he's like, you know, what is my like corporate job compared to like these actors in these movies and like the stuff they're doing? It's so awesome. And I really resonated with what he was saying. Like I understood where he was coming from. But for every impossible goal, there is a 100% realistic version of that, which would be cool as fuck. Seriously. Like for me, you know, following with the track of that acting ambition, if getting a movie role or some sort of significant movie project is impossible, what is definitely possible, but still very, very difficult, but possible on some amount of a timeline, is getting a show at the Premiere Theater here in Minneapolis, which is the Guthrie Theater. Like that is actually possible. It might take me a couple years to get there because they have actors fly in from LA and New York to do those shows. Recently I'd seen a show at the Guthrie Theater where Wes Studi, he was this actor in this movie Hostiles and Last of the Mohicans. He plays a lot of like Native American commander type characters. He was in that play. He was like in a stage play at the Guthrie. They get a lot of acclaimed actors show up, but at the same time, I think me living here, me being in that culture and being in that environment all the time, it's totally possible. It's completely possible. And to do a show at the Guthrie, you know, I'd really love to do is A Christmas Carol. I freaking love that show, that musical or that play. I feel as if, hopefully this doesn't happen, but I really resonate with Ebenezer Scrooge, like being grumpy and like being miserly and all that. Like I sort of relate to that feeling, and there's like a lack of gratitude in your life currently, and then like reflecting on your past and feeling kind of like, oh, I did some things wrong in my past. I really resonate with that musical. I love Christmas time anyway, so I would actually love to play Scrooge in a play version of that. But I know that that is a realistic version of the impossible goal. I even have friends, actor friends, Peter, who's been in a bunch of my YouTube videos, they've done shows at the Guthrie. And the fact that they've done it, I think it just gives me hope that perhaps I could one day do it too. And I find that super exciting, even though it's a more realistic version of the impossible goal. And by the way, impossible goals are still there for the taking. It's just that the mind sometimes doesn't know what to do to achieve that, or there's a factor of luck involved that's just beyond comprehension. But if you bring it back to reality and say like, what can I actually do? It gets very, very exciting. There's other things that I came up with that I find super exciting. So one, getting skydive certified. I know I talked about this in videos of Youre, talked about this last year as well. I know I'm a Tom Cruise wannabe and all that, but it's fully possible. Now I only have 3 jumps total skydiving, 1 tandem and 2 solo. And I have gone through like the 6-hour solo course alongside Manoj and Anuj from a year ago. But in August, the weather is actually really good for skydiving. There's not a lot of like volatile weather where it's like raining. I could go to that drop zone a decent amount of time and get those jumps in. You know, I only need 22 more jumps to get fully certified. I could probably do that in a week, honestly, if I wanted to. And that's there for the taking for me. I just need to, find the strength within myself. I need to unleash hell from within and get that done. But it's fully there for the taking. 10% body fat. Now, the lowest I've probably ever gone to in terms of body composition, body fat, might be 12 or 13% body fat. I'm someone who doesn't store a lot of fat in my face. So my face, becomes aesthetic relatively early on. Like even now I must be at 13 or 14%, but things get lean pretty early on. But my midsection, it just holds it. It's the last place to go. So everywhere else can get lean. My legs can get kind of like striated and stuff. But the 6-pack abs, they just never come in. But because I'm running such high volume and most of my high mileage is at a relatively easy pace, my daily caloric burn is extremely high. It's like 4,000 calories a day, daily burn, 20,000 steps a day, 25,000 steps some days. So my burn is so high, I don't really have the appetite to eat enough to replenish that. So as long as I get my protein and lift 3 or 4 days a week on top of the running, a very reasonable chance that I could cut down to 10% body fat. And it's not like the biggest achievement in the world, especially for someone with like a really slim build like mine, but it's something, and it's something I could definitely get excited about. So you in your own life also, you have grounds to be excited about some stuff. You just sort of forget to be excited about these things. Sometimes what happens is you look at that lofty ambition, you look at this thing that's unachievable, I don't know, you sort of like lose steam. At least many of us do. We lose steam on our own ambitions and what's possible. We forget to become excited about what's actually possible for us. And then when you take a step back and reflect and you actually look, you're like, holy shit, there's actually so much on the table for me. There's so much I can do. And I've just been acting like a little bitch, not working towards that ambition, and it's gay, okay? Pull your fucking shit together and get pumped about your own life, all right? Which brings me to the last idea of the video. Give yourself cancer, make yourself 70, put a gun to your head. Now come back. Turns out you're actually rich as fuck. That's all there is to it. This happens all the time. People who are ambitious, we forget gratitude. It's like, how do you find gratitude? And the Stoics had this idea of negative visualization, where you sort of imagine how much potentially could go wrong in your life. We forget to do this, or, it's like people say, think positive, but sometimes thinking super, super negative helps you realize how great you have it. And I've often found like a lot of catharsis or meaning. Back in the day, when I was really stuck in life, I would watch movies like Schindler's List, the Steven Spielberg Holocaust movie, or Saving Private Ryan, and like watching those soldiers storm the beaches of Normandy and just imagine like this actually happened. All these events actually occurred, and a lot of like difficult, heinous times in history have existed. And then you pull back even to a more surface level thing. There are people my age who have cancer or just some kind of illness. They're just like, they have a complete lack of energy. I'm blessed with fantastic energy, and chances are you are too, or at least have the potential to be fully energized, fully fresh. That's such an incredible gift. You could be 70, you could be 80 years old. Like you really could be at a point where you've like nearly run out of time. And anyone who's young, like sometimes people have reached out to me, they're young, they're broke, and they're like, all I can think about is the fact that I'm broke. I'm like, yes, but you're richer than so many of us. You're so young, you have time on your side. If it's really a reference to how much time we have less. If you think about you're gonna live to 70, 80, 90 years old, think about how you would feel about your age right now if you were that old. You'd feel great about it. You'd feel like, holy fuck, I'm young as hell. I have so much that I can do. This is incredible. Or third, put a gun to your head. Imagine someone's put a gun to your head and threatened you with something. Like you owe them 100 grand. You owe them some money. Or your loved ones' lives are at stake if you do not kind of get after it. What kind of pressure would that put on you? Now you don't have that pressure. Turns out you're not 70. God willing, hopefully you're extremely healthy and you don't have any diseases or whatnot. You don't have a gun to your head, yours or a loved one's, but you have this moment, you have this opportunity, and you have a process before you that you can follow. So it is our duty and it is our kind of declaration to not only chase that pursuit, but to chase it with love and gratitude in our hearts. And that's what I wish for all of us. Now, these videos, some of you might have noticed, they're a little bit more simply presented than videos of the past. I hope that's okay with you, at least in this current season of the channel. The truth is, as I ramp up and pour more of my efforts into River Rats the film, I don't want to take away from the efficacy of what I could be doing with the movie by being too cinematic with YouTube and too I love cinematic intros and stylizations, but for the sake of this project that I'm currently pursuing, I want to present the ideas that I've been thinking about week over week a little bit more simply, which means there's less B-roll, there's less cinematics for the most part right now, and there's even less analysis. It's more emotional connection and what I'm genuinely wrestling with in my life rather than analysis-driven content. So if you're okay with this style of video, let me know in the comments below. Every season of my channel, it has a different vibe. And I think this is what's necessary right now to progress towards some of these things I'm working towards. But hopefully you're watching, tuning in, staying along with the journey. And if you are, I appreciate you so much. And for those of us who are committed to the process and really beginning to love it, romanticize it, get after it, to us I say, greatness is coming. We'll catch you in the next one.